Okay. Yay, we have audio. Now I had this cropped and then it stopped working and then I had to redo it and now I don't have it cropped anymore. Boop. Crop. That should be fine. That's visible. This isn't really optimal, but okay. Okay. Okay, so now you should be able to hear my voice. Can you hear me, Stars? Okay. So I'm hearing a lot of audio clicking, and like Renoise isn't keeping up on this crappy machine with 32 gigs of RAM and the latest processor from Intel. Are you hearing the popping as well? That's not coming out the other side. Okay. So they shipped with an amazing processor and a lot of memory and the cut greatest sound card they could possibly. Okay.
Yep.
I could use a USB sound card.
Yep.
Like the one out there.
Yeah. You should clip this and send it to and have me send it to Tyson.
Why am I still hearing?
That's me. There's about a 30 to 40-second delay on.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me
Go,
mute Ev. my voice was muted. Ha ha ha. Hi. Um, so welcome. You should probably post something in the chat, if you're here, because there's not a whole lot of people here, and it's cool hearing from people and knowing who I'm talking to. Cool. I'm gonna wait a few minutes to let people kind of see the thing and come in, and in the meanwhile, I'm gonna try and fix my audio. So, um, let me know if the levels are weird between my voice and the music. My voice should be muted when the music is playing, but hopefully that just continues to work. And hopefully I shouldn't blow your ears out with the music. So let me just do a sound check here. Yeah, so hopefully that was okay. It's right. Yeah, I was muted. The what was I gonna say? Um, the thing. The audio is probably fine for you, but for me, there's a bunch of clicking and popping, because the whole Jack server is getting X runs, which is basically when Renoise can't finish writing to the server, the audio server, in time for the server to need to move on to the next period to sample, and that's going to click and pop, which is weird because you'd think that it's, I don't know. You'd think that would cause clicking and popping everywhere, but it doesn't seem to be doing so. So there might be black magic involved. But just in case, I'm going to increase the period to 1024, which is going to introduce a little bit of lag when I'm playing on my keyboard, but I'm honestly okay with that. Okay. It's still getting extra runs every once in a while. I'm using a lot of DSSI plugins, which Renoise sometimes has trouble kind of keeping up with. But anyway, hi. Do So this is how I'm doing the voiceover here. I have a send track, which is all the way at the end, to not kind of get mixed in with anything. It's actually outputting to a different system output than my whole Renoise, which I use Jack to route into into OBS, the streaming software. And I do that because I want to hear the music playing in my headphones, but I also don't want to hear my own voice. So they're kind of routed separately so that Jack can route one to my headphones and both to the stream, which is pretty neat. Like, once you get audio set up on Linux, it's actually really nice. And the fact that you can just route audio any which way with free tools that you can just kind of install and set up is pretty nice. And I am going to miss that when I get my Mac. Though I'm not going to miss it for long because I'm going to pay extra money for an app that lets you do basically what you can do on Linux for free. Which I've come to be... I've come to accept. So what the hell are we looking at in here, right? This is Renoise. Hey, welcome. You should post in chat. if you're here. Um, okay, so Renoise is a digital audio workstation. It's like a pretty complete DAW that like I think a lot of people look at it and say, "Oh, it's a tracker. It's for making chiptune." Which, yes, make chiptune with it, make Toho music with it. Like it's perfect for that sort of thing. But it actually can do pretty much anything that you can do in any other DAW. Some things it's going to rely on external plugins for a little bit more, but sort of every DAW has its sort of strengths and weaknesses, and I want to show you some of the cool things today. So, okay, so what's the deal? What are we looking at here? This is a bunch of numbers and gobbledygook and like, right? It's like math. I actually really like math. I know some people don't. Um, but it's actually really easy. Um, this bright orange line right here, that's the current play position, and it goes down. So when I hit play, time goes down, and it just hits all of these events, which are notes, um, and then plays them as it hits them. This is a sort of tracker paradigm where instead of having like a traditional timeline or whatever, you just have your events and you input them like a spreadsheet. See, look, I'm just moving my cursor around with the arrow keys. Like I'm not doing anything fancy at all. Um, the things in here are notes, and a note has what note is it, which instrument is it, right? And you have your list of instruments up here. I'll get into those. That's actually where I'm going to be spending a lot of my time today, is in the instrument editor. These numbers are hexadecimal, so they go from 00 to FF, which makes it easy to kind of go halfway between things. And it gives you a lot larger range in a kind of more compact space. So this one is how loud is it? What's the velocity? And this one is the delay column. I can actually control which of these columns appear with these. So normally there's velocity, pan, and delay is the sort of three parameters that you have for every note. I'm hiding the pan column because I almost never use it. But yeah, so the yellow is how loud is it. Blue is how far after the beat does it actually trigger. You notice I use this for my shaker. Let me just actually solo that. Um, then we can have certain effects over here. These are the first kind of effect automation. So this comes from sort of traditional trackers. This GF0, G stands for glide, and it causes the note to glide to the next note. Hello. Right, okay, when I solo a track here, it, mutes this one. That's real fun. Is there any way I can prevent that? Um, hmm. It should be better now. It's coming through. Hoi. Yeah, I'm getting... Yeah, okay. It was just a delay. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure quite how to do that. Um, because when I solo a track, it's gonna mute pretty much everything. Um, well, I just won't do a whole lot of that then. So anyway, I'm gonna just kind of get rid of all of this here. I have copied this file, so I can just whoop, start from scratch here. So now I have an empty project. I'm gonna get rid of some of these superfluous tracks, and I'm just keeping the tracks, the setup that I usually kind of always like to have, which is a drum group with a kick group, a snare group, and a percussion group, a bass group, etc. So I'm gonna start making some sounds. So I've opened up the instrument editor here, and currently the instrument has nothing in it, so it makes no sounds. Renoise comes with a bunch of like basic chip sounds, like a sawtooth, which is always like way too low, so I always have to like bump up the octave there to get it into like a normal range. One of the first things I'm gonna do with this usually is give it a cutoff because the raw saw wave is kind of harsh. That was a high pass. Low pass filter to carve off the harsh ends out there. And you notice if you see my little keyboard indicator, if that's even working at all. Yeah, I'm playing the keyboard like a piano. So and this is really nice. This was really nice for me when I was just getting started and didn't have any kind of MIDI keyboard or anything, and was just had my computer and this 70 euro piece of software that uh, I had no idea how to use. The fact that you can just use your computer keyboard is amazing. And you get 2 octaves, which is cool. Cool. So I can play a thing. What did I just do to add that filter? So these are the samples involved in this instrument. So you can have more than one sample. Right now we just have one. We can look at it here on the waveform tab. It goes through some modulation, which is just stuff that happens when you hit a new note. So you can apply some volume modulation. So here I am in. This took me so long to figure out, but going to different modes, different things I might want to modulate, like the volume. And I can add different devices that modulate them in different ways. Um, so here I'm modulating the volume, so you get a little pop at the beginning. I'm not going to do too much of that right now because what I'm trying to make here is a kind of I like making interesting bass sounds, and I know people for interesting bass sounds. A lot of times, people just like buy or pirate a like massive or something, and then go through the presets. And I really wish people would like look at synthesis a little bit more closely because it's actually really fun, and you can make a lot of that kind of stuff just by messing around. So let's start. So our first technique was using a filter, right? This is very basic, called subtractive synth. You start with a sound and then you take stuff away until it kind of sounds how you want. And we can put an envelope on our cutoff just to give us that kind of sound. We can modulate it here. I'm actually gonna go down an octave since we're looking for a bass sound. So we're already a little bit into some nice millennial sawtooth territory here. I'm going to take off the attack on that. I'm going to cut the resonance. So we're applying a filter to the audio, and the filter is going to keep a bunch of the low frequencies and cut a bunch of the high frequencies. And resonance is just a little bit of a boost at the cutoff point to kind of make up a little bit for lost volume. And what you get if you sweep a higher resonance filter, like this filter is moving over time, and if the resonance is high, that little boost is going to move, and you're going to get kind of a sound, like something is actually moving across that spectrum. If I bump the resonance a little bit more, it'll be even more like apparent. And you can modulate the resonance and stuff if you like. I don't usually. I think I used to, but then I stopped for some reason. We could put an LFO on it. So LFO is a low frequency oscillator. And this is just something that oscillates, goes back and forth at a low frequency. So something that you're not going to hear as a tone, but it's just going to go back and forth. You can see it kind of moving here. You can also see the effect it has on the resonance here. So frequency, great. So that's fine. So our first techniques are all subtractive synthesis. You can of course put effects on it, right? Like I can send it through a cabinet. The cabinet simulator in Renoise is just trying to simulate the sound of plugging something into an actual amplifier. And putting a mic in front of it. I often like to use the cabinet simulator to just kind of beef up the sound a little bit, give it a little bit more interest. It's pretty subtle. So what I'm doing here is I have the dry mix set to 100%. So this effect is going to take the audio in from the left. And first just output 100% of what it hears out to the output, but then it's also going to add in a little bit of this cabinet here, which we can make as fuzzy as we like. So that's a decent thing to do. We can also play with which cabinet we use. Renoise comes with a number of them. I have no idea what the difference between these are, except just the kind of... And you can play with the equalizer before it goes into the cabinet. Right? So just kind of give it a little bit of flavor. One of the things that I really like to do to widen a sound Um, so what are we looking at up here? These are, you can actually have multiple effect chains. So I can add a bunch of them. Eventually, they're going to get routed to the current track, whatever track the instrument is being played on. But we can use an effect that comes, and it's sort of a meta effect. I think it's called a routing effect, called send, which is normally used to send stuff to other channels or other places in your mix. But you can actually use it in the instrument editor to send things these uh, between these different effect chains. So I'm going to send the signal from FX chain 1 to FX chain 2, and I'm actually going to rename this to left. I'm going to rename this to right, and you might be able to guess what I'm doing is I'm separating the signal into left and right, and I'm going to do slightly different processing on the left and right channels. So I'm going to use two sends. The first one, I'm going to keep the source. So the send effect is just going to send its audio off to somewhere else. Keep source means it's also going to send it out here. And I'm not going to play any notes because it'll be super loud because I've just doubled the signal. So this one goes to right. Then what we're going to do is just pan these two channels to the left and right. And now we just have the same signal we started with. But you can see over here, I know it's kind of small, but you can see in the monitors, this one only has the left channel going, and this one only has the right. So now we can put some effects on these. In fact, I'm going to move the cabinet over to here, and I'm going to copy it and paste it down here. Hello? Hello? Okay. How long have I... Okay, so not too long. I was afraid I'd been muted for like 10 minutes. Cool. Um so okay. Um what was I saying? Okay, this little thing up here shows you about the stereo width of your audio, right? This little meter going to 1 means that the left and right channel are playing exactly the same thing, and you'll hear everything being smack in the middle. And for electronic music, well, for any music that's really being meant to be played in stereo, we don't want to have that at the very end of the day. A lot of the times in recorded music, you'll record everything in mono first, and then sort of place your instruments um, as part of your final mixdown, or even just use some kind of automatic stereo expander on your master. But for electronic music, I really feel like you want your fundamental sounds to be wide, especially for this kind of bass sound that we're trying to build, which is supposed to sound enveloping, like it's supposed to sound like it surrounds you and gives you that nice bass feeling. So I tend to want slightly wider signals, which is not what we have right now. Okay, so we're gonna widen it by putting some different effects on here. Maybe we use a different cabinet here. Change some of the EQ settings. I don't know. I'm going to throw on one of my favorite effects that is completely free and runs on Linux called Soul Force. Oi. See, now you can see I have applied an effect only to the right channel. And you can see this is starting to look a little bit wider. We're still not seeing a whole lot of width here. But let's change some of the parameters here. I don't know. Maybe do... And I'm not putting any sort of stereo effects on the left and right channels because I do still want... So no flangers, no choruses, nothing like that. Because I still want the signal... I still want the signal coming out of them to be just left or right. Let's see, we can put some reverb on it. Just to kind of color it a little bit. And some reverb there. And we're applying the effects in reverse order here. Give it... Make this pretty subtle. And then I'm going to send both of these back to a post-processing thing. So let's put some sends. Not multiband send, just send. Here and here. And we're going to send to post. Send to post. Okay. Now when we play our instrument, it should come through here, which you can see on the meter. So that's fun. What other cool stuff can we do? We can EQ these slightly differently. So for example, I actually really like the sound of that swooping across. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm just going to put an LFO on that and let that kind of sweep there. So the LFO device in Renoise, it looks like this. You select something for it to modify. So we're going to modify EQ 5, and we're going to modify frequency 3. Yeah, there we go. So here is the frequency of control number 3. We're gonna go kind of over here a little bit. This gets a little bit weird, and this is one of my complaints with Renoise, is sometimes there's things that have like log scales that you can only map to sort of linearly. I'm gonna up the frequency so I can just kind of see what I'm doing to kind of get this go where I want it to go. Then I'm pull the frequency back down so it goes kind of slowly. So there's that, and I'm actually gonna instead of trying to catch that little thing, I'm gonna open up the full display here so I can actually change how much it is doing. Anyway, cool. What else can I do here with just some of these built-in stuff? I can apply. So I did that frequency sweep on the left. I can apply a mild distortion on the right. Oh, that's after the send. Oops. Okay, so now we've done some sort of fun widening processing with effects, and we can start using the next fun technique for making cool sounds, which is layering. So layering is just playing more than one sound at the same time. So what I'm gonna do is I have this. These are all a little bit weird because they're so short, but they're gonna sound very different when they're actually looped as a thing. So let's add in a pulse of some kind, and this one I'm just gonna send to no effect chain, so it's not gonna go through any effect. And let me just look at this real quick. And just make sure we're on the same note here, because sometimes these samples. So let's bring that up by an octave. What's 12 plus 7? Like 19? 19. This is weird. Okay, so it was in tune. It was just too low to actually hear the real tone. Okay. So we're gonna do 36. These are all multiples of 12, by the way, because this is transposing by semitones. So those are, we want octaves, they need to be multiples of 12. So that's fine. Let's mix those together a little bit better. Okay. And then we can actually, right now it's using the same modulation as the other one. I'm actually going to tell it to use a different modulation. So this one that's selected goes through this modulation set. This one that's selected goes through this modulation set. So right now, not doing anything at all. And the reason I want a different one is I thought the resonance was a little high. Like you were getting kind of a whistling noise, which I really didn't kind of want to have. So I'm going to cut the resonance all the way on this filter. Okay. So I'm gonna give it its own effect chain. Down here. Kabam. So I'm gonna give this one a soul force. Just because we want that kind of clear distortion kind of effect. There we go. Okay, and this one I'm going to use a different technique to widen it. So Renoise, the just regular equalizer that comes with Renoise right here. This took me a really long time to find, but it's actually really cool. If you turn on the EQ, you get this LR, L minus R, L plus R. So what the heck are these doing? I never use L or R. L plus R is when we do the equalization, it's going to apply equally to the left channel and the right channel. I guess L and R mean it only applies to the left or the right channel. L minus R is going to apply the inverse to the right channel. So if I boost something here, it boosts in the left channel and then cuts in the right channel. So this whole band will get boosted on the left channel and cut on the right channel. Similarly, if I put it down here, and you see we can use this to kind of like pan a part of the spectrum out to the side, which I think is really fun. So here, often I'll do a shape like that. That's fun. It's a little breathy. Not quite what I was going for, but I'll take it, honestly. Let me just cut the volume of this a little bit. Another fun thing you can do, which is just kind of nice and fun and creative, is you can actually just draw on the fucking waveform. Like, just grab this little pencil here and go to town. So gives it a little extra something. You give it these little like cuts like that, you get a nice harsh end to them. And then we got to think about how this sound moves. So when you're actually putting together a track, usually you want your sounds to kind of not be the same all the time, right? It kind of creates excitement when your sound opens up or closes down. And so you want at least one parameter, and I usually just stick to one parameter because it gets a little complicated if you have more than one, that you can modulate over time. So usually I use channel pressure, which is down here, just to say what sort of but actually this time I'm going to use one of the macros up here. So if you click this little macros button, you get these nice 8 different macros for each instrument. And you can click this mapping button and map this macro onto any of these parameters you want. Probably most common is to have a cutoff mapping, and you can change the range and things like that. So as the value of this macro changes, um, you can see this thing is going to change in tandem with it. And of course, we can map it to more than one thing. So if I wanted to map the macro also to, let's say, the drive on the distortion on the right channel. And actually, I'm going to start it at 33% as its max. So I'm going to change the max here to be 33%. And now as I do this macro, that's going to change, which is pretty neat. I should probably do something on the left channel as well. Let's do gain on our cabinet up to about 43%. Okay, so there's the gain for the cabinet, and that's just whatever gain knob you might have. So I'm going to set the max to 43%. So that kind of... And then if you notice, this one isn't changing at all with the macro. So we need something that's gonna do. I'm gonna do okay. I'm gonna increase the resonance of this as the macro goes down. And all you do to do that is you swap the min and max. So if the minimum of the thing is less than the maximum of the thing, it just goes backwards. So as I change this macro, as I move it up, the resonance falls. As I move it down, the resonance rises. I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just... And we're also going to map its cutoff. I don't know. Sounds okay to me. So now let's put down a little bit of content for this, so we can actually kind of hear it in context and maybe play with it. So I'm actually going to get rid of all these effects that I had on here before. We just have a blank slate here. So let's see. When I'm in the pattern editor, I can press escape to enter insert mode. This is if you're a Vim user, this is sort of similar to insert mode in Vim. But basically, if you're not in insert mode, you can just kind of play your keyboard. And if you are in insert mode, it will input the notes into the thing. And you can use Alt over here to kind of change what instrument you're on. If you look up here, hold down Alt and the arrow keys, and I change the instrument. So we're on our newly created instrument down here. And I'm going to just write something. Maybe, and let's actually provide, since we're doing all this layering, this is one of the things I forgot about layering, is that often it's nice to have some effect on all of them that kind of glues them together. Um, I'm just going to use a compressor for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the our little Elm instrument here off to post. So everything kind of gets combined in post. I'm going to rename this Elm. So, okay, everything gets combined in post, and we're going to use a compressor. I like the bus compressor. It has a little bit more granularity, and it kind of shows you in a little more detail what it's doing. I'm going to compress this pretty hard. Also, the left channel is a lot louder than the right channel, so I'm actually just going to turn it down. Okay. You can kind of see that just up here. That the left channel, which is on the top here, just turn your head to the right. The left channel, which is on the top, was just a lot louder. Actually, it moves slightly to the right as it goes on. It's interesting. Cool. So we're gonna do. And these gray lines here are the beats. So I'm not hearing that high of a tempo. So I'm gonna turn the metronome on just by hitting backtick. Okay. Hoi. I accidentally pressed Control A. Hello? There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. So here I'm going to press Control 2. And what that's going to do is it modifies this little parameter, which is the skip lines parameter. So every time I enter a note, it's going to skip 2 lines down. It's decent. Let's put some portamento on that. So I'm just holding down the G button, and now I'm holding down the F button, and now I've got GF0 on all the things. So Control 0 to get rid of that line skipping behavior. like it sliding around that much and doing that much. I do want it to slide a little bit here. Dun, dun. Yeah, I'm not sure. This, I might want to. Okay, let's just take it somewhere else. The next one. So I'm just going to duplicate that pattern. So over here to the left, we have basically the same thing as over here, but kind of zoomed in. And we can see more than one pattern. So you can actually see the line going. I'm not entirely satisfied with that bass melody, by the way. It's a little. I'm not even sure what to call it. But we'll trudge forward and we can edit it later. I want to get something down so we can kind of modify the sound in a bit of context. And if I don't end up using this bass melody, what I'm probably going to do is just export this instrument as a Renoise instrument, which is just a file that I can load into any project. And then if I'm like, oh yeah, what was that bass sound that I made that one time on the stream? I can just be like, there it is. It's a file. But I'd like to change chords a little bit here. Let's see. I press Control-1 there so that my deletes would also skip lines and actually delete everything. I mean, yeah, this is ending up being like a melody, which is not really what I wanted. I'm not sure. Let me just move this up here. Okay, so what has that big ol' attack? Because I don't actually really like that anymore. It's this. It's this ADHSR here. Go away. and you saw there, I'm just fiddling with this macro as the thing goes. Now, what if you're like, oh yeah, well that's great, but I don't want to just be in the instrument panel and fiddle with my thing. Turns out Renoise has a thing called inster macro here. Boom. So it'll automatically map it to whatever it sees as the most used instrument on our track. And we can modify the Mac from here. So that's a start. But then, so the traditional tracker way would be to put commands in here that change this value, and that's fine and all. And actually, if you want to do that sort of live, you can right click. You have to have the follow on. So there's a setting, or there's a state, which I have a key command map to turn on follow, which just means that your input point, which is also the place where the UI is focused, follows the playhead. So if you have it set to follow, you can just grab this with a right click and just mess with it all you want. I don't usually like doing that because then it's just in this. I press Control Z to get rid of it, but here it is. Then it's just in this format of just like a bajillion like commands that I don't even know what they mean. So let's not do that. Instead, we're going to use a visual automation, and this requires a little bit more mouse usage, but that's okay. So there's two ways to get to your visual automation. So one is to click this little square here, and that's actually a really nice way because it takes you to the automation panel. So the other is to just click the automation panel here. So automation is just change your parameter over time. So here we are. Instrument macros, macro 1 is what we're editing, and we can just draw our envelopes here, give them nice curves if we want. You know. I don't know how I feel about this one. This is just kind of to show my usual workflow. I'm not feeling a whole lot of inspiration about this sound here. So let's. I don't know. It's good. It's just not quite. I don't know. Let me make a different thing. So there was. I'm gonna try and replicate an effect that I accidentally stumbled on in a track earlier when I was using a recorded sample. And so this is a recorded sample as well. Let's just, I duplicated it, so I'm gonna just kill all of the stuff we've got going on here. Okay. Can y'all hear me? It says unable to connect chat. It should be okay. Okay. So this is something I made with a Ruby script a long time ago. I don't remember exactly how I made it. It was something FM synthesis. Something. But kind of a bell sound made with frequency modulation. Um, but it's kind of basic. What is it doing? Oh, I'm still on some sort of track. Got it. Effects on it. Let's make a new track. Nothing on it. Oh, this is muted. Double check that my voice is not muted. It is not. There it is. Come through. But what I'm going for is a little bit of a sort of accidental steel drum effect that came about through using resampling. The resampling is when you take an instrument that you've got, play a note, and then basically record that and then start this process over again, or mix in that that new sample that you've recorded. And so I'm gonna set some loop points here. I'm gonna set them actually a little bit earlier on. Actually, I'm not going to do that yet. First, I'm going to put some modulation on it, and I'm going to do the loop after I've recorded it. So a thing about using pre-recorded samples is that in order to get different notes, it has to sort of play it faster or slower depending on what note you play. Which means if you play it really high, it doesn't last for very long. See, I turned on the loop. Like that's it. That's all of the audio information there is. So you can turn on a loop to kind of make it keep going, but then you have to be a little bit careful about where you put your loop increments, because otherwise you can get this sort of warbling sound. Now, what I'm actually going for is that warbling sound. So let's put a cutoff on here. A little bit. Yeah, okay. And now we're gonna pick a sort of now we're gonna pick a note that's gonna stand for everything. It'll be this one. So I'm going to move this track out here so it's just not playing through any effect. I'm going to put a note there, and I'm going to select some time here. Boom. And I'm going to right click, render. let's make some chords in here. Wait, I have to hold down shift to do chords, that's right. Something like no. Oh, and then when a note ends when it hits this off event, of course, which I just insert with the A key, which isn't mapped to any. Okay, I want to chop this up a little bit. There's a command that I like to use for that, which is C, which stands for cut, and it cuts the volume to this value after this many fractions of the line. So, for example, I usually often do like cut the volume to 0 after 5, and so I can do that a bunch of times. Put in some different numbers here. And it kind of gives you that glitchy kind of sound. And I'm not sure if I like it coming in that fast. Maybe just oh, and then this one is still 0, so that's gonna not sound at all. So let's give it a non-zero number. Something. We are. Hello? Okay, yeah. Let's mute that bass for a second. So I'd like that to be wider because right now it's just right in the middle. You can see on our stereo monitor over here. And a way that I like to do that is I'm just going to actually literally duplicate this instrument twice. And I know this is kind of silly and kind of a lot of grunt work, but bear with me for a second because it is going to pay off. I'm going to select in this column here. I'm just going to move these to different tracks. Boom. And I've put those tracks in a group so I can apply effects to them all the same. And then this is going to be instrument 11. So I'm separating the notes of my chord into different instruments. And the reason I do that is that a single instrument can only be panned in one static way. And then move these guys over here to the group. And now I can get rid of these extra note columns. So now they're on different instruments, and now I can actually pan them differently. So we can have kind of this like, you know, this backup singer is singing on the left and that backup singer is singing on the right kind of effect. And that's going to emphasize those little bubbly sounds, because something that's happening on the side is a lot more noticeable than something that happens in the center. Just generally, like your ears will pick up on it more. There's a lot of weird like human psychology stuff that goes into this. Like, oh, I can't hear my bass because it's not, but turning up the volume isn't exactly the answer. Maybe, but maybe if I make it move a little bit more, you'll notice it more. So now you can hear it because it's like somehow more interesting and like makes your brain zero in on it a little bit more. So we tend to zero in on things that are on the side and things that are moving or changing over time, which is why it's nice to kind of change stuff over time. So with that in mind, let's change the panning over time. Because right now we've just got these three voices, one panned straight in the middle and two of them panned to the sides. They're more or less the same sound. I literally duplicated the instrument, right? Okay. So, but let's just make them all sound just a little bit different from each other, maybe. What's a good thing to do to this sound? Oh, and then of course we combine them all at the end with some kind of glue thing. So this is going to be steel drum thing. It's not actually a steel drum, and it sounds nothing like a steel drum, but it does have a little bit of that metallic sound from the FM synth, and it has the bubbly sound that you would get when rolling a steel drum. So I'm calling it steel drum. You can't stop me. So on the main track, actually, let me just start with the. So this is going to be. Oh, focus over there, please. Okay. Steel drum 1. Wait. Steel drum 2. And steel drum 3. So this one, what am I going to do this one? Probably lo-fi it a little bit. That's fine. Oh, you know what I am going to do on all of them? I'm going to put a delay on it. This is sort of a classic, like, use delay. Right? Like, it's got so much, like, bouncy, I don't know, quality to it. Bring down the send a lot. The amount of time, so the amount of time that it'll wait before playing back the delay is 2 lines. That's because I hit line sync, so it'll always be 2 lines. And then I sort of changed how modulated the offset of these a little bit. So the left is going to delay a little bit earlier than 2 lines, and the right is going to delay a little bit later than 2 lines. And from that, you're going to get some widening effect. This one is a little bit dangerous to use. You always want to check this one on mono because sometimes if the waveform is very simple, it can sort of cancel itself out to the point of not really being able to be heard unless you have like a nice stereo setup. Oh, I did not put this in everything. Yeah. Oh. So I always use these this send channel setup. I have a group with everything that gets sent to a send called pre, and this is sort of the pre mid side mix, and that duplicates the signal just as we saw before, but now we're doing it in the mixer rather than in an instrument. So it's going to send both to side and mid. Mid is going to use a stereo expander here to just squash the whole signal to mono. And side is going to use a doofer that I sort of invented to isolate just the side. Basically, I invert the left signal, flip it all the way over, then squash that to mono, and then flip the left signal back again. And when you do that, you cancel out everything in the mid. And when you combine these two signals, one that's squashed to mono and one where we do this funky thing to isolate the side, you get your same signal back. So this is all flowing through here, and now we can kind of modify them. So if I mute the side channel, everything is in the middle. So if you want to hear what your track might sound like on someone's phone, where you don't really get a stereo image, you can mute this side side channel and kind of see. I also use this when I'm doing my sort of final mix down or master to be able to, for example, I can put an EQ on the side channel. Sometimes you need to kind of tame the low end of side. It's not really a problem in this mix because we don't really have a lot of low material anyway, but just to be able to say like, oh, I'm hearing a lot of like binaural beats kind of stuff where it's just kind of the there's too much bass on the side, right? There's these huge differences in the left and right signals, so you can kind of just tame that with a regular EQ over here. Some other DAWs you don't have to do all this work to do mid-side processing. I mean, that might be nice, but this works for me so far. Cool. I think I like this sound. And it is seven, so I'm gonna sign off, I think. So yeah, this might have just been this person who's standing right next to me, but that's fine too. Anyway, bye.